actually, in spiritual life, just as much as in material life, if not more. Because if we have simply some sentimental or traditional or ordinary view of spiritual life, that you perform a few little rituals, you make a few little offerings, and then magically something is supposed to happen. Well, what exactly? What is supposed to be the result? What is the process? What are the stages? What are the procedures? What are the laws of, in material science, they know all these different laws of material nature, and they're able to predict all kinds of phenomena because of it. But what are the laws of consciousness? What are the laws of the soul? And there's a great deal of misunderstanding on all this. Even within Vedic knowledge, or knowledge derived from the Vedas, there's a great deal of misunderstanding and disagreement about this subject. But all of these misunderstandings and all of these disagreements can be boiled down to one fact. God, or Kṛṣṇa, or the Supreme, is the owner, controller, the doer, the knower, and the enjoyer. In Sanskrit, there's a word Bhagavan. Bhagavan means precisely that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original controller, owner, creator, doer, knower, enjoyer, like that. But then who are we? Well, we are simply his servants. We are like his children. We're like little babies who can't do anything for ourselves. He has to do everything. So we can't explain how we beat our hearts. We can't explain how we breathe while we're asleep. And nobody can explain dreams. There's so many things we can't explain, so many things that are a daily fact of life. But we cannot say how we're doing. And the reason is that we are not doing it. Kṛṣṇa is doing it. Bhagavan is doing it. See? He is the actual living force in every body. He is the actual energy of consciousness, the reservoir of consciousness. Here's a thought, another scientific thought. We see the light coming from the light fixtures, and because the light is there, we know that the sun is there, the reservoir of all light, the source of all the light, of all the energy. And then a little while ago it was raining. So when we see the rain, little drops of rain coming down, we know that somewhere there's an ocean. There's a reservoir of that energy. And similarly, when we see the soul, when we observe our own consciousness, if you ask anybody, are you conscious? They're going to say, yes, I'm conscious. That means, at least to some degree, they are conscious of their consciousness. At least they are conscious of the fact that they are conscious. That means that we have some consciousness of consciousness. So if this consciousness energy exists within us, there must be a reservoir of this energy. There must be a source of where this energy emanates from. Just like the light is coming from the sun, the water is coming from the ocean. Maybe the process is direct in the case of the sun, or maybe it's more indirect in the case of the water. First it has to be evaporated and go into the cloud, then the cloud goes over and pours the rain. But still, the reservoir of the water is the ocean. The reservoir of the light is the sun. Similarly, the reservoir of consciousness is God. This is the proof of the existence of God. That you cannot have any energy without some reservoir, some source, some point of emanation from which that energy expands. So in the case of consciousness, this is God, this is Kṛṣṇa. So the Vedas tell us that the aim of human life is to restore our original relationship with God, with Krishna. And what is that relationship? Well, first of all, we have to understand what we are and what He is. So we are pure consciousness. But what is pure consciousness exactly? How is consciousness working? Well, this is a great science. I'm not going to go into all the details. I've done this, talked about this so many times. We have on our website so many videos about this subject, so many essays, so many questions and answers on the forums about this exact subject. For 3 years, we did nothing but preach on this one subject about the nature of consciousness, the nature of the soul, and the relationship of the soul with the Supreme. Right? It turns out that the soul is like a ray or an emanation from the Supreme. That doesn't mean that we're one with the Supreme. We're not one with God any more than the rays of the sun are one with the sun. But they're similar in quality. Similar in quality. Just like if we take a drop of water from the ocean. That doesn't mean that the drop is the ocean. But the water has similar properties. So similarly, the soul has a lot of the properties of the Supreme. And we just went through detailed analysis of the 64 qualities of the Supreme, Krishna. And it turns out that the spirit souls can share up to 50 of those qualities. It's like 71% or something like that. 71% of the qualities of the Supreme are also found in the Jiva soul. But the difference is, in the Jiva soul, we have them in infinitesimal, tiny, tiny quantities. But in the Supreme, those same qualities are there in infinite, unlimited quantities as deep as the ocean. Actually deeper than the ocean. The ocean has a bottom. But the extent of Krishna's qualities are just unlimited and ever expanding. So we can understand, if we follow this line of reasoning, then that the relationship between the soul and God is one of the energy and the energetic, or the source and the emanation from that source. We are emanated, not created, because the spiritual energy is eternal. Means never born and never dies. Eternal doesn't mean just forever in the future. It also means forever in the past. You heard the saying, that which has a beginning also has an end. So if the soul were to have an end, then we could say it's created. But actually the soul is eternal, immortal, indestructible, immutable, unchangeable, always the same. So the soul has no end, therefore has no beginning either. This is very hard to understand for the conditioned living entities. But metaphysically it has to be true. Otherwise there's no meaning to the word eternal. There's no meaning to the word God. God has to exist before this world comes into being. And He has to remain after this world is finished. This world, this material world, is subject to time. Time is pushing every minute. We cannot stop the flow of time. The force of time is irresistible for all beings, for all objects in this material world. They're all subject to the force of time. But the soul is not part of this material world. The soul is constitutionally part of the spiritual world. And therefore, we don't feel at home in this material world. We always feel like there's something wrong. We don't quite fit in. We don't quite belong here. We're not really of the same nature as this material world. This material world, everything has a beginning and an end, but we don't want everything to end. We don't want our life to end, or our relationships to end, or our position to end, or anything. We want everything to go on and on and on so that we can live and grow and realize our plans and stuff, our goals. And how can we realize our goals if at any moment we can be taken out of this world and we don't know where we're going? See? This is a very, very deep problem for the spirit soul. Because we are eternal, yet we live in this world of the non-eternal. See? We are permanently existing, yet everything around us is only temporary. How do we find happiness in a place like that? It's not possible. So at the very least, our goal in life should be, number one, to find our real nature. And number two, to get out of this false nature